The Mies van der Rohe Award is the most important European architectural prize. Every 2 years, it is awarded to one exceptional building that was built during this time in Europe. Basically, the buildings that receive this prize are the ones that will represent our time in the history textbooks of the future generations. This year, for the first time, this award was given to a building in Poland, the Szczecin Philharmonic Hall. I can't wait to see it, so that's why right now we are going to Szczecin. I saw this building for the first time just a few moments ago, and I need to confess that it gave me shivers. Not only because I see for the first time something that I saw on hundreds of images in newspapers or on the internet, and it's better in reality than it was in pictures, but mostly because it's just great architecture. It's a stunning building. It's very modern. It's completely 21st century from the first look until the tiniest of details. But I think this very modern building is deeply rooted in the past, in history. And it's not just deeply rooted in the history of architecture, but also in the history of this very place. For example, the whole layout, the whole shape of the building. For me, it's a clear inspiration from what was once a characteristic feature of all the towns of Hanseatic League, like Szczecin, or like Cologne, or Gdańsk, or Lübeck. Their streets were lined with very narrow townhouses called the Hanseatic townhouses that always have a very steep, very narrow, decorated gable. This was a module that was repeated and repeated to create this rhythm of the whole facades of city blocks in many towns of Northern Europe. And also here, the architects from the Catalan firm of Barotsi and Veiga chose to use a very narrow thing with a gable as a module in creating this large building, because it houses a room that can accommodate 1,000 viewers. So it's a large building, but still it consists of the basic elements that once formed the core of the urban layout of Hanseatic towns in Northern Europe. But its connection to the history of this place of Northern European architecture is not only in the whole layout of the building, but also, I think, in the detail. What comes to my mind as an architect and architectural historian when I think about the architecture of northern Poland? A specific style called brick Gothic, a variation of Gothic architecture that was only built using brick.
Because of a virtual lack of construction-suitable stone here, architects had to develop something else. They had to build everything, from monumental architecture like cathedrals and churches and town halls, to simple townhouses using only brick. And to decorate everything with architectural details, also only made of brick. They developed very finely, very precisely shaped elements to form a lacework of details that cover their buildings. From large, ornamental screens to delicate tracery in the windows, the brickwork forms a veil of architectural detail. The Philharmonic Hall is also covered in a veil of hundreds of rhythmic, vertical ribs or laths. For me, it's a clear reference to that medieval brick lacework. Precise detailing that slightly blurs the edges of the building and makes it lose a bit of monumentality. This blurring effect is enhanced by the presence of glass between these ribs. When we get closer to it, we notice that it reflects the sky. The Philharmonic Hall is not a freestanding structure. To the east, it borders police headquarters dating back to the beginning of the 20th century. At first sight, one can say, what a contrast! These two buildings have nothing in common. But let's take a closer look. They share the same scale, so that neither dominates the other. The police building has been designed in Neo-Gothic style, and it is of course brick Neo-Gothic, alluding to the architectural tradition of the region. It's got gables adorned with thin bar tracery and rich, fine detailing. It refers to the Middle Ages but does not pretend to be medieval. It describes old architecture using the language of early 20th century. So does the Philharmonic Hall, but it uses the language of contemporary architecture. The entrance is clearly marked. It leads to a giant, bright lobby, extending the entire height of the building. From floor tiles to monumental spiral staircase, everything is carefully designed.
The interior of the building is surprisingly consistent with the exterior. It's white, and as it is on the facade, the key element, the key detail, are those ribs, those loughs that line up the walls. But on the facade, they're set against a white background. Here, the background is black. The effect? When we're looking at the wall at different angles, it has different shades of gray. And when we're looking at a distance, there's an optical illusion. It seems that the wall is twinkling, as if the whole building, the whole walls were vibrating with the music that we can't yet hear. And since we're talking about music, the beating heart of the building is the main Philharmonic Hall. Let's take a look. Designing a concert hall building is a difficult task. As with any public building, it needs to be functional. It's best when it's beautiful. It should be safe. But with a symphony hall, a philharmonic hall, there's a other feature, something that's invisible. It should sound great. Here in Szczecin, architects and acousticians were able to create good sound thanks to acoustic devices that also look great. This way, this magnificent hall not only is pleasant to the eye, but also to the ear.
Both the appearance and the acoustics of the concert hall are determined by the same elements. Triangular panels hang at different angles on the walls and the ceiling. They reflect sound, but also light. This is because they are coated with metal leaves imitating gold. A particular feature of this space that makes it stand out from other concert halls around the world is that it is lit by daylight. At both ends, skylights let the sun inside. It bounces off countless golden surfaces. This glimmering and twinkling background is in contrast with black upholstery of the seats. This heart of the Philharmonic Hall is completely different than the rest of the building. The whole building offers plenty of details, but they are toned down by the ubiquitous whiteness. The concert hall, on the other hand, thanks to its golden surfaces, is characterized by almost baroque splendor. There can be no doubt what is the most important part of this building. This ostentatious decorativeness is almost over the top. But the purpose of this space is also to set the audience in the right mood. And when the light dims, it's only the music that reigns here. Obviously, in a historic city like Szczecin, one can hardly find a piece of land where nothing stood before. It's no different in this case.
The Philharmonic Hall was built in a place once occupied by Concert House, a building of the same function that was destroyed during the war and subsequently torn down. So maybe this is the last final reference to the past, the continuity of the function of the center of music in Szczecin before the war and now after the realization of this new magnificent structure. The Concert House was a typical architecture, a typical building for its period. It's late historicism, eclecticism architecture with repetitive pilasters and arcade windows between them. A dull thing, something that you can find anywhere in Europe. The new Philharmonic Hall, on the other hand, is entirely bespoke. It is bespoke for me because it has this magnificent concert hall inside with supreme acoustics that are comparable to the best examples like the Viennese Musikverein. It is bespoke because it references the past. It continues the dialogue with the architecture that would be standing here were it not for the war. It is in a constant dialogue with its direct neighbor, this building that speaks about the same feature in ancient Polish, in ancient Northern European architecture as does the Philharmonic Hall, but does that in a different language. And finally, it is a bespoke thing because we are here in Poland, a country that looks into the future, but has its roots deeply in the past, in the history. Thanks for watching this video. Click below to see a film about another icon of Polish architecture, the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Warsaw, and click here to subscribe to this channel. See you soon.